Hey gamers, you're watching or listening to another episode of What You Gaming On, where we start each episode by asking you, what are you gaming on? If you want to let me know what you're gaming on and be featured in a future What You Gaming On episode, make sure to email me at whatyougamingon@gmail.com and tell me the game that you've been playing, what you like about it, what you don't like about it. Tell me all this in your email and you will be featured in an upcoming episode of What You Gaming On. For now, we don't have any entries, so I'm just going to talk about a little bit what I've been gaming on, and I have been playing a lot of Sea of Thieves. This is a game that originally I was just really excited for it. It's one of those games that I was really looking forward to playing. I love pirate games. It looked really fun, and then I played the alpha and the beta, and it just wasn't what I wanted. It was first person. It had a huge learning curve. It was like the chance for PvP was just gave so much anxiety in this game. But I've been playing it more. I've been playing it with friends and also just playing it with random groups, and I've become almost obsessed with this game. I love it so much. I love being on the ship. I love fighting skeletons. I love finding treasure. I love customizing my pirate and finding like the different outfit I want for it. And I know that they've got so much content coming up for it. It's starting in May, and then in the summer they're going to be adding so much more to it. I'm so excited for this game. I just love playing it, and it's such a simple game, and it's so simple that I'm dying for more content. I'm dying for more content. I would love to see what Rare has planned for the future of this game. I would love to see that. Some things that I would actually love to see in future content. I do have a few, not so much critiques, but things I would love to see. So already, it's a first-person game, which my thoughts on first-person are well documented. I've said it many times, and I'm going to say it again. I don't love the first-person perspective in video games, but I also don't hate it, and I'm fine with it. You know, I'm not boycotting a game because it's first-person, not third-person, but I do think Sea of Thieves should have a third-person option, especially since customizing your pirate is such a big deal of this game. That's one of the big things that you put the goal that you make towards is customizing your pirate and customizing your ship. So not being able to see your pirate in gameplay it kind of sucks. Like, you get to see your pirate if you're doing like an emote, if you're dancing or clapping or waving or pointing off in the distance or doing whatever emote you want to do. That's when you see your pirate. But aside from that, it's all first person and you don't get to see your pirate. And yes, I understand that you're not, customizing pirates so you can see it. You're showing off to other pirates so they can see you. I don't care. I don't care what other pirates think of what my pirate looks like. I care what I want my pirate to look like, and I want to be the one to see my pirate in game. So I think because customization of your pirate is such a big deal, I think it really needs to have a third person option. I said the same thing about Destiny 2, that because customization is such a big deal, you should have a third person perspective, or have the option to have a third person perspective. I also something in this game that is just killing me when I'm playing it is the 5-shot ammo limitation you have on your guns. You can have you can have 2 guns. You can have a sniper rifle or pistol and a blunderbuss, or you can have a sword and a gun. But with your gun, you only get 5 shots, and then you have to either run back to your ship from whatever island you're on, run all the way back to your ship, find the ammo box, reload, or if you're lucky enough, find an ammo box on the island and reload your ammo. But that is such a pain in the butt to do. It is such a pain. And I really wish, like, either they gave us more shots and then we had to run back, or if they had the amount of shots kind of on like a cooldown timer, like you get your 5 shots and then you have to wait 30-60 seconds until your ammo replenishes itself and then you have another 5 shots. I really think this would be a better way to handle this. Also, I know that PvP in this game and fighting other characters and other ships is such a big part of this game, but it is literally the least fun part of that game for me. I've never liked PvP. I have never liked playing PvP, and when you're sailing, the just anxiety you get from worrying if another pirate ship in the distance is going to come up and try to take your stuff, and that I'm terrible at PvP, so I'm going to lose, and I'm going to lose my hard-earned stuff. I hate that. So I wish there was some kind of way to either separate PvP and PvE servers to where, if you don't want to play PvP, you go to a PvE server where you can't attack other players or something, or even if they just made outposts a neutral zone where as soon as you get to the outpost, you're safe. You don't have to worry about someone waiting on an outpost to take your stuff, or maybe they sunk their ship and they're basically laying a trap for you on the outpost. That is such just, it gives so much anxiety. I wish there was a way to separate PvP and PvE players, but I doubt that's ever going to happen. Something else is longboats. So I've noticed on a lot of, pirate ships and pirate TV shows, you have a longboat. You have a small boat attached to your ship, and I think this would actually be a really good idea to add so that if you're sailing your ship and you lose your ship gets sunk, you still have your longboat. So you can dump all your treasure onto that as fast as you can and then row away as fast as you can to some kind of safe harbor. I think that would be a really good thing. Also, skeleton pirate ships. So I actually have a feeling that is something that they're planning to add, is to add more skeleton PvE enemies where they actually have a skeleton pirate ship, and just like you can fight another player's ship, I would actually like to fight a PvE pirate ship, and that would be kind of this epic event, which like I said, I don't like PvP. I like PvE a lot more. I'm fine fighting skeletons. I'm fine with that. So those are just a few things I hope they add. Some of them I doubt ever going to happen. I doubt they'll ever add a third person aspect. I wish they would, but I doubt that's going to happen. But the others I think are reasonable requests. So I'll call the boys down at Rare and get them working on that. So in lieu of some gaming news, I was actually reading one of the more recent Game Informer magazines, and they did a top 300 games of all time. And actually, a lot of my favorite games were on the list. And it kind of inspired me that I want to do my top 10 games that I have played. I'm not doing 300 games. I don't even know if I've played 300 games. I probably have in the course of my life. I have probably played a good bit of at least 300 video games. But I'm just going to do a top 10, and these aren't the top 10 games of all time. These are simply the top 10 games that I've played, and in no particular order. We're going to start off with Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. This came out during the first resurgence of Star Wars, during the new trilogy that was happening with Star Wars that was just such a disappointment. This game came out and showed what a strong storytelling universe Star Wars could be by telling us something that we've never seen before, going 1,000 years in the past of the Star Wars we know and telling this brand new story. The storytelling was amazing. This was also one of the first games I played that had dialogue options. This was one of BioWare's early dialogue option games, and you got to choose the kind of character you're going to be and ultimately choose your destiny. And you had that huge reveal, which, I'm sorry, spoiler alert, you had that huge reveal that your character was Darth Revan, but you had your memories were wiped away, so you're able to kind of have a fresh start, and you can decide if you're going to be good or evil, if you're going to be the light side of the Force or the dark side of the Force. That was a big deal when this game first came out, and it would just... to this day, it's still one of the best stories and one of the best reveals. Hell, I think it was even better than no, Luke, I'm your father. It was just such a big, strong reveal that this game was just no complaints. Aside from it just being very dated at this point, it's one of the best games I've played. Next on the list is Witcher 3. This is a game, Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, and because it was called Wild Hunt, I had a feeling that The Witcher 3 was actually going to be more like Monster Hunter, which I've tried playing Monster Hunter World, and I can't seem to get into it. But Witcher 3, I thought it was basically just going to be hunting monsters, which part of the game is. Part of that game is hunting monsters, but so I didn't really look too far into it until I had a bunch of coupons that were about to expire at Best Buy, so I just was like, screw it, I'm gonna go use these coupons. And I ended up getting Witcher 3 like a couple weeks after its launch for like less than $30 just because of coupons, and playing it, by far one of the best games I've ever played. It was just such a massive, complete, amazing story that was told of, Witcher and of Geralt and Yennefer and Ciri and the Wild Hunt. It was such a good story, but the reason that this game is on my list of top 10 games I have played is specifically because of CD Projekt's Red handling of the DLC. They gave us a massive, complete video game. This game, it wasn't like, you get to play most of it and then you get a DLC, that's the real ending. No, they gave you a complete, massive video game, and then for 1 year, it was like a couple times a month, they gave out free DLC. They gave out free missions. They gave out free gear. They gave out free customization options, different finishers in combat. Like, they gave out so much free DLC that a year later, when they put out their first DLC, which both of the giant story DLCs were almost as big as The Witcher 3, or at least as big as The Witcher 2, the game that came before it. And both of these DLC stories were, again, complete stories, and that were just so amazing, such great stories, that by the time they came out, a year after Witcher 3's initial release, I was happy to give them my $15 for these DLCs. So thank you, CD Projekt Red. You are, in my opinion, you are the standard of releasing DLCs that all of these other gaming companies, looking at you, EA, has something to learn from how you did your DLCs. So thank you, CD Projekt Red. Next on the list is the Tomb Raider. Not the original Tomb Raider games, but the Tomb Raider reboot that came out for PS3, and then they remastered it for PS4. This was actually my first real introduction to Lara Croft. I'd always known who Lara Croft was. I knew about Tomb Raider, but it was never a game that I really got into until this game. And they just completely revamped the character of Lara Croft in, I think, the best way, especially in the first Tomb Raider, where she's basically an archaeology student. She's basically still learning how to be this archaeologist, and she's basically learning through trials by fire. She's put in this situation where she doesn't have confidence. She doesn't think she can, but she keeps overcoming each challenge and grows as a character. And the story and the development of Lara Croft in this game was so amazing. Just that, and also the gameplay was so refined, and the adventure that you got to have and the combat worked so well together that by the end of the game, I truly felt this was one of the best games I have ever played. Next up, we've got Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Of course, there's an Assassin's Creed on my list, because Assassin's Creed is almost 50% of the games that I play. Like, going through my library on my Xbox, like, half of the games I have are Ubisoft, and half of those are Assassin's Creed. But Assassin's Creed Black Flag, in my opinion, even with Assassin's Creed Origins releasing earlier this year, or at least at the end of last year, Black Flag is still the best Assassin's Creed game, in my opinion. Some of it is because of bias, and some of it because I just think it's a strong game. As bias, I love pirate stuff. Like I said with the Sea of Thieves, I love pirate stuff, and this game was the pirate adventure we didn't know that we wanted. It was better than Pirates of the Caribbean. In some ways, I think it's better than Sea of Thieves now, but this was just such an amazing pirate adventure. And for Assassin's Creed, it was fresh, it was new. You had the Caribbean, you had pirates, you had naval combat, you had your ship that you could customize and improve on your ship, and use that for almost more than half of the game itself, was using your ship, fighting and boarding other ships. This was the pirate adventure that we'd always wanted, and the character of Edward is still my favorite character in the Assassin's Creed franchise. He, starts as this just completely greedy, egotistical pirate, and he grows into such a strong character by the end of it that he learns from his mistakes, he learns from his past, and he grows as a character. And that was something that just, this game was because by then Assassin's Creed was becoming stale, and Assassin's Creed Black Flag is what revitalized it. Just like after Assassin's Creed Black Flag, we got Unity and we got Syndicate, and it was just getting stale again. And then we got Origins, which again revitalized the franchise. Origins is the same studio, the same Ubisoft studio that did Black Flag. So I don't think we should have expected less. But I still think Black Flag is the best Assassin's Creed game, just for my own personal preference of pirate stuff and sailing and blowing up ships, to just it being such a strong game. We're moving on now to Portal 2. I played the first Portal. I'd never heard of it before. Someone gave me the first Portal as a Steam gift. And I was like, all right, let me try this game out. And I started playing this game at around 7 p.m. that night. I finished it the following morning. I played it all the way through. I could not stop playing it. I loved the gameplay. It was just like I'm saying about Assassin's Creed Black Flag. It was fresh. It was new. It was a first-person shooter that wasn't a first-person shooter. It was a just giant environmental puzzle game. You had to figure out. You really, really had to think on this. And Portal 2 just built on that to the point that I don't even want to play Portal 1 and 2. If I want to play Portal, I'm going to play Portal 2, because not only did it have just amazing gameplay from Portal 1 and then adding like the different gels that you could use for different things for your portals, but it also just added some of the best and funniest characters and dialogue I've ever seen in a game, between GLaDOS as a potato following you around, just basically demeaning you the entire time, to Wheatley, who was voiced by, Richard Merchant, I can't remember his first name, but Merchant. Was it Stephen Merchant? I think it was Stephen Merchant, who did the voice of Wheatley, who was just such a funny character. And then, of course, J.K. Simmons, anything he does well. And as the kind of Abstergo founder, because of the dialogue on top of just already such a strong new gameplay, this game cements itself as one of the best games out there. Batman Arkham Knight. I know a lot of people kind of crap on this game, but I personally feel that Batman Arkham Knight is not only the best of the Batman Arkham series, it's better than Batman Arkham Asylum, it's better than Arkham City, because I feel that it takes all of the best parts of Arkham Asylum and Arkham City and then adds to it by giving you literally all of Gotham to explore by air and by road in the Batmobile, and the story of Batman that they tell. Like, this story tells kind of the final days of Batman. It's, in my opinion, the best adaptation of Batman out there. It's better than the Christopher Nolan movies. It's a lot better than the Tim Burton movies. It's even better than what we've seen of Batman in the DC extended universe. And I have a feeling it's still going to even be better when the actual Batman movie comes out with Ben Affleck, if it ever comes out. That movie's been in production hell since the beginning of the DCEU. But it is just such a strong storytelling on the character of Batman Knight. Like, not only is it just running around fighting crime, beating people up, it gets into the core of what makes these characters tick. Having the Joker as kind of not even the big villain of this thing, but as like a kind of, it's almost like a conscience. He works almost like a conscience, or literally the opposite of conscience. He's like the devil on your shoulder for the entire game, and you really get to the core of what makes the Joker and Batman relationship tick. You get what makes these characters who they are, and other characters. Like, there's a DLC. Yes, it's a DLC. It wasn't part of the original game. It was a DLC, but it was a Mr. Freeze DLC that just, again, got to the core of what made Freeze his character, his wife Nora, and it literally tells the end of that story and what happens to them. And it was such a touching story. Like, it does an amazing job of getting to the core of each of the characters in this video game, in the Batman mythos. And for this, I consider it one of the best games out there. Gears of War 2. Now, I love the entire Gears of War series, one of my all-time top favorite series, but Gears of War 2 did something that not a lot of other games like it did, and it was just such an epic science fiction story. It had some of the biggest and best elements from just the span of science fiction. It had the giant earthworm that you had to cut out from the inside. It had the mad scientist experiments of mutants that you had to deal with. You had the underdwelling, the like the mole people with the oh god, what are they called? I'm gonna remember it. Locust. You had the underground dwelling locust. Like it took the best elements of science fiction and put it into one game. Now the gameplay itself was still very dated, and like now it just feels clunky playing it. But just especially with this story kind of concluding Dom's search for his wife Maria. Like if you aren't heartbroken in that moment, and if you've played the game, you know the moment I'm talking about when he finds Maria. If you aren't heartbroken, then you, sir, have no soul. You, sir, or man, you have no soul. You have no heart. Because it is one of the most heartbreaking moments, not even in video games, just in storytelling, just one of the most heartbreaking moments, and one of the best games I have ever played. So moving on to Mass Effect 2. Again, Mass Effect is a series I absolutely love, but Mass Effect 2 is really where the Mass Effect franchise picked up steam. And again, it was because of its characters. It took the best parts of Mass Effect 2, which were the characters, which were the dialogue choices, and then revamped not only the combat of the game, but just how the game worked, and it actually put consequences on your decisions. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've restarted that game because I made the wrong decision and I lost one of my characters. I've played that game so many times, not because it's just a great game, but because I made the wrong choice and I had to start over from the beginning, because I will be damned if I lose any of my crew in that final suicide mission. I have to have my crew with me by the end of that game. And it's because of these characters that, and what they go through and the development of the characters, that make you care about them. You care what happens to them. Even the small DLC characters that you get, you care what happens to these characters by the end of the game. And, you know, I still love Mass Effect 3, and I think Mass Effect 3 took, like, the best parts of Mass Effect 2 and then added to it, but just Mass Effect 2 is just such a solid game. Next on the list, we do have Bastion. So, Bastion was one of the three games that Supergiant Games has made, and they're basically two for three, or I guess two... they've made three games. Two of these games are amazing, and then their recent game, Pyre, was not. But Bastion was one of the first four Supergiant games, and it was just a very simple game. It was like this fantasy western kind of game, but it excelled at storytelling. You had the kind of narrator, one of the characters who was narrating everything that you did, and it was just... like, not only did it tell the story, it told the things that you did. Like, if you died if you died at some point in the game, he would say, "Oh, then the kid died. Nah, I'm just playing." And then you restart from a checkpoint. Or if you're playing the super easy game where you don't die, you just keep coming back and you keep moving on. Which, yeah, I'm a terrible gamer. That's the one I usually play. But it had such a strong story and such strong storytelling. And then on top of that, some of the best music I've ever heard in a video game. Like Darren Korb did the music for Bastion and then their next game, Transistor. And I imagine he did I actually don't know if he did the music for Pyre or not. I tried playing it and I was so disappointed in it that I didn't finish it. But Bastion is such a simple game and such a simple story, but so good. And then the twist at the end, it's not even the twist at the end, it was a plot twist that literally days after playing it, just sitting down thinking about it, I realized something about it. I'm not going to spoil it here, If you've played the game, if you had and you've had the same realization of this plot twist of on the character of the kid and the storyteller, then you know what I'm talking about. I don't want to spoil it here because it really is one of those spoilers that isn't something that you see in game. It's not something that like the game tells you. It's like with Knights of the Old Republic, it tells you that you're Revan. Like it tells you in the game you're Revan, but in this game it doesn't. It's just something you have to connect the dots to yourself later on after playing it. But it was still one of just such a solid, simple game, so fun, and just such a good story. Finally, again, continuing the theme of just amazing storytelling was The Walking Dead. This wasn't one of the first games that Telltale did. They had games before that, including another just amazing game, The Wolf Among Us, which was based on the Fable comics, which one of my favorite comic series, and still one of my favorite games that Telltale has done. But The Walking Dead, the first Walking Dead Telltale game, was the first one that really gave Telltale their success and got people noticing the games that they've made and noticing the games that they're going to continue making. And it was like it was such a new way of playing a game. It was less of a game and more of a cinematic experience that you got to, choose all of the dialogue. You got to choose the choices that you make. And again, just like other games were in Knights of the Republic or Mass Effect, that these choices just mattered in the characters and how the story was going to develop around the choices that you make. It was the first one that people started to really notice. And I attribute that to the fact that it was Walking Dead. Like it came out at the height of the Walking Dead fandom from the TV show. But it wasn't the TV show. It was more based on the comics. But even then, it was a new story based on the comics. And it was the first Telltale game that really picked up steam. That, like, even today, not all of the games are top. Some of them aren't that great, but then some of them are just amazing. And the first Walking Dead was one of them. So those were my top 10 games that I have played, and you'll definitely notice a trend that I put a lot of stock in how good the story was. Story is a huge deal for me in playing video games, that if there's very little story, there's a good chance I'm not going to like it as much. Which Sea of Thieves, that's the game I've been playing, just obsessed with. There's hardly any story in Sea of Thieves aside from the story that you make yourself, of the adventures that you do yourself. But story is such a big deal for me, and you can see that just in the amount of story-focused games that I have in my top 10 list of best games I've ever played. So with that, we're going to come to an end. I want you to tell me what are your top games that you have ever played. You can tell me top 10. Hell, if you want to, you can tell me your top 300 games you ever played. But remember, if you want to be featured in a What You Gaming On episode, make sure to email me what you're gaming on at whatyougamingon@gmail.com. And I will put your answers into the future episode of What You Gaming On. So let me know what you're gaming on and tell me what you like about it or what you don't like about it. Also, if you want to check out any of my video game reviews, go to www.treyguillotine.com, where you can also check out my other video content where I talk about a lot about the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Marvel in general. So make sure to check those out, subscribe to my channel, and keep on gaming, gamers.